What's going on, all of you fantastic freelancers? I hope you all have been doing well during this whole COVID-19 crisis, and each and every last one of you are staying safe and sound. I hope with today's video we can take you away from all the grief and strife that's going on in the world, as I welcome you all to our second sponsored lore video. If you all missed the first one, don't worry, we have a card that will appear on screen right about now for you all to watch that episode before watching this one on the second part of the Histories of the World of Anthem. But before we get into the video, I figured now would be a good time to hear a word from today's sponsor.
Essential oils, aromas for natural wellness and healing. But current products aren't made for gamers. Now there's a better way to holistically improve your game with scents like strategy, kill-death ratio, and dominance. All of them mostly safe and distilled using nature science. This is what victory smells like.
Okay, just kidding. This Anthem lore video is actually sponsored once again by Raid Shadow Legends. I know you all have seen the game advertised literally everywhere, but have you actually given the game a shot? Like seriously, it is a dark fantasy RPG game available on both mobile and PC, and not to mention it is free to play. I've been playing daily since the last video, and I have to say I'm actually having a blast building my team of champions and taking on the game's campaign. Raid also features a really awesome daily login rewards program that has up to 180 days of rewards for new players. Each day you can claim free rewards such as silver to upgrade gear and champions, and 3 free champions such as Sill of the Drake. If you want to support these lore videos and ensure more are made in the future, then please consider using the links in my description box, and if you're a new player, you will get a hefty head start with the game with 100k silver and a free epic champion called Light Sworn. Plus, you will find extra rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days. A very special thank you once again to Raid for sponsoring today's episode, and without further ado, let's get into the video. Welcome back, honored freelancers, to the second part of our discussion on the first histories of our world. My name is Arcanus Willem, and previously we discussed the Shapers, touched very briefly on the Anzu, and of course we left off on the Age of Chaos. Most of you freelancers know that the Age of Chaos is synonymous with the origin of humanity's greatest enemy and former suppressor, the Urgoth. Our lesson today will cover their oppressive rule, the members of the Legion of Dawn, the first Emperor of Anthem, and of course, the famous General Helena Tarsis herself. Out of the hellish and turbulent Age of Chaos, the Urgoth emerged the superior sentient race. Believed to be the direct descendants of the Anzu, these creatures oftentimes towered over most other sentient life, especially humans. Some records claim that they could have even been as tall as a colossus. But being the dominant species on our continent of Miras, they subjugated and ruled over humanity. The Urgoth viewed humans as lesser beings whose only real reason for existing was to be subjugated, completely and utterly. As far as all research and studies indicate, there are no records of any pre-Urgoth structures or settlements made by humans indicating from the earliest time of our being, we were their slaves. Though, despite the Urgoth's rather low opinion of humanity, they didn't use us for something as simple as manual labor or meaningless tasks. They instead put humans to work, creating and maintaining Ember-based technology. You may have found or noticed this substance during your time in the field or even for sale by merchants within the settlements. Ember is a naturally occurring, yet dangerous, byproduct of the Anthem, used as the foundation for most of our technologies. Even our most advanced technologies are made up of Ember, such as your freelancer javelins. The Urgoth realized the power that Ember held, but for whatever reason, they were unable to manipulate it. It was for some unknown reason that made humans the only capable sentient species that could wield this mysterious byproduct of the Anthem of creation. Ironically though, the Urgoth had humanity working with the very substance that would one day earn them their freedom. Over the course of many years and countless generations, some humans became accepting of their enslavement and rule by the Urgoth, but not all of our kind were content with being their slaves. Knowledge and research was being passed down from generation to generation that would be the key to ending the monster's oppressive dominion over humanity. The individuals who dealt with the experimentation of Ember became known as the first Arcanists. Slowly, but surely, the resistance to overthrow the Urgoth had begun. This would mark the beginning of the Legion of Dawn. It is hard to say for sure where the beginning of the true human rebellion began. Some say it began with Artem Vasa, when he developed the first javelin utilizing research and experiments from generations of Arcanists, creating the ever-famed Javelin of Dawn. Others say it was the moment Helena Tarsis first donned that legendary suit of armor as her own. Others say that it was humanity's first true stance against the Urgoth, when humanity had gathered enough resources to organize Gerulian tactics to free more humans and recruit them to the resistance. No matter the true beginnings, though, the human rebellion threw the Urgoth off balance, pulling the rug out from their once comfortable feet. One has to wonder how surprised they must have been. For all those years, they thought they had forever submissed humanity. But our will to be free and our spirits would never be broken. While they may have had Ember-forged weapons, we were their creators. It wasn't long before we had begun to one-up anything we had ever made for the Urgoth, the Javelins. To quote the volume of Tarsis by Garrod, Artem Vasa crafted a suit of armor, plated in Ember and Hope. This would make General Tarsis stronger than the Urgoth, then the Ursix, then the Titan. It would be humanity's salvation, a spear hurtling towards freedom, a Javelin of Dawn. While other javelins that came after the Javelin of Dawn were admittedly not as powerful, they still leveled the playing field against the Urgoth. The cursorial leg design would allow us to stare our ancient enemies directly in the face on the battlefield. The armor would protect us from their retaliation, and our will would see us through to the end. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before the Urgoth regained their footing, and the true battles began. While previous raids had been successful, the Urgoth were far from incompetent, and we were far from invincible. The Urgoth had hordes and considerable resources amongst other things. The Legion of Dawn had something far greater. Heroes. Helena's husband, Garrod the Chronicler, detailed a few of these legends who joined Helena's war against the Urgoth. There was the one-armed Artinia, the sharpshooter, the brilliant-minded Karif, the tactician, the greatest sword wielder who ever lived, Gons, the blade master, the master ember worker, Yevenia, the forge right, and eventually the woman who would go on to forge the Dominion, Magna Strahl, the slayer of the dreaded Cindermaw, Maderon, the herald, Leotrel the Unbroken, and so many others. But perhaps the most well-known is their general, Helena Tarsis, slayer of Fulminus, wielder of the voice of heaven, and hero of humanity. Their tales are long and impressive in and of themselves, but perhaps they're better told another day. The Legion of Dawn led the resistance for quite some time against the Urgoth. It is unknown how many months, or even years, the fighting ensued for. Though what we do know is one of the final battles against the Urgoth, and how it ended for Helena and her Legion of Dawn. As the war waged on and was coming to a close, Helena gathered the Legion to their old sanctuary as detailed in the volume of Tarsis. It was there that the Urgoth surrounded them, thinking themselves cunning. As they began to pour into the valley below the mountain, they laughed and cheered, certain that they would finally defeat the last of the human resistance, bringing the war to a close. But Tarsis planned well for this, and as she knew, the Urgoth would commit their greatest forces to this battle. Using the voice of heaven, the blade forged from the thunderous voice of Ananzu, she slew the Urgoth as they were buried underneath waves of rock and earth. Despite this crushing loss of their forces, the Urgoth initiated one final assault to cripple, if not destroy humanity for all time. The dreaded creatures set their sight on Anthem, the last hope of humanity, untouched by their will. Helena Tarsis, with a few trusted remaining legionaries, turned their sights to holding the Urgoth inside the mountain pass. She and the remaining legionaries under her command would hold the pass for 3 days until the roar of the Legion of Dawn's reinforcements arrived to aid their general. The Urgoth were soundly defeated and slaughtered by the courageous efforts of the Legion of Dawn, and all would have been lost were it not for Helena, Yevenia, Artinia, Karif, and Gons holding the line. Though sadly, amongst those that were slain in this great battle were these 5 legionaries. While these heroes may have fallen, their sacrifices allowed humanity to thrive and rebuild, though it would do so fragmented. Without Helena Tarsus and the true enemy defeated, the Legion of Dawn disbanded and divided. What happened to the Urgoth, you might be asking? Most arcanists believe that they went extinct. Others believe they fled underground or to another continent altogether. Whatever the case may actually be, it's still up for debate. As far as what happened to humanity, Artem Vasa, the creator of the original javelins, was named the first ever Emperor of Anthem, transforming it into the capital of Bastion we know today. The former legionary Magnus Strahl took a sizable portion of humanity north, calling themselves the Paladins, which would later become the Dominion. While unfortunately the Paladins would become the Dominion years later, Artem Vasa founded the Sentinels to defend and protect the royal house of Bastion and all the settlements under its protection. A third faction you may be all too familiar with would later form known as the Freelancer Order, who vowed to follow in Helena Tarsus' footsteps, defending all of humanity and braving the dangers outside our tall, high walls. Years later, the Dominion began their expansionary conquest from their northern seat of Strahlheim and made their way to Freemark to activate the powerful relic known as the Cenotaph. And from there, you already know the rest. The Dominion lost half of their forces when a cataclysm erupted from Freemark as a result of the Cenotaph's awakening. After a failed attempt to shut down the Heart of Rage, the Freelancer Order lost a bulk of its forces and much of its respect throughout Bastion. Both factions have returned to their fortresses and home states to lick their wounds, but I have a feeling a war is about to be renewed very soon, though between who remains to be seen. With that, Freelancer, this lesson is concluded. I hope this enlightened you to the legends and histories of our world, and I look forward to our next lesson regarding the Dominion, their monitors, and their true masters very soon. Be strong and be safe, Freelancers. And remember, you are strong alone, but you are so much stronger together.